Good morning, everybody. I'm Melisa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials. Many moms that have children that are really young are asking that question, like, how do I make sure that they're learning? How do I make sure that they love their learning? Well, one thing that I know as a mom that's been around the block a few times is that it's impossible to keep them from learning. Impossible. It is impossible to keep them from learning something about things that they love. So what happens in the Waldorf curriculum, though, is a lot of people will go, oh, no, it doesn't happen in the Waldorf curriculum for a while, and so I shouldn't do this right now. And so what I say to that is I would examine the topic, and I would examine how you can bring it to your child in an age-appropriate manner. So let's take butterflies, for instance. Butterflies, if you've got, and it's often a topic of like 4 and 5 year olds, they're interested in it, they see it, they're at the eye level of where butterflies come down a lot. So they'll ask questions about butterflies. So you can talk to a 4, 5, 6 year old about butterflies. You can use big words like pollination and talk about what pollination is, because it's really, and that's a big word, it's kind of a simple concept. You can just say that's how plants grow and that's how plants change, and excuse me, you can even talk about it as far as bees would be concerned. What things that I would stay away from is I wouldn't talk about scientific names with a young child. I would say, oh, that butterfly's name is monarch, and talk about them in those kinds of terms. But I wouldn't necessarily go to the extent of having the scientific names for a child that's that young. I would stay away from scientific names until they do get ready to cover it in the curriculum, or at least until they're older than 9. Just because you really want to give children things that stick with them, that they understand, and they're really not going to understand a lot of that. So don't waste your breath. Don't fill them up with things that they don't need. Give them the common information. Give them the life cycle information, so you can talk about a caterpillar that then turns into a butterfly, and you can order one of those kits and watch it happen at home, or you can follow the looking for ones in nature. I think those are great ways to explore, sort of cultivate that love for learning when they're young. And then when they're older, you would definitely go into the scientific names for things, especially because they'll be covering it within the curriculum. So you'll want to do those things with them later. Excuse me. You can also talk about pollinators in general. We actually did this last year. Excuse me, and we've been doing it more this year as well. As Sam's gone through botany, Soraya's always been sort of along for the ride. She loves this idea of pollinators. She wants to know who all the pollinators are. So we talk about hummingbirds, and then we'll go to the zoo, where we have the San Diego Zoo has a great little hummingbird house, so we can sit and watch all the hummingbirds. It's a lot of fun to do that, and watch them feed and watch them be in plants that are, that they would be getting into in nature. We talk about butterflies as pollinators. We talk about bees as pollinators. We talk about bats as pollinators. There was a Richard Attenborough show, I think, right, Dare? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And
it was a Disney nature show.
It was a Disney nature show, and it was all about it was about plants, but it seems like excuse me, there was a part in it that was about bats.
It was about animals with wings, but it wasn't birds. It was
it was like bees and bats. So we talk about bats being pollinators and specific kinds of plants that bats pollinate. So they would only obviously pollinate something that opens at night. So whenever we see cactus, because we are in Southern California, there's cactus everywhere, she'll say, I wonder if that's one of those plants that that the bats pollinate. So when then they start to bloom, she gets really excited, because she knows that there are going to be things that are animals that are going to come and pollinate and then go and take that elsewhere. So I think it's very important to bring those concepts, but you notice I didn't bring the concept of the scientific name. I didn't talk about how we're losing bees and butterflies. I didn't talk about any of that. I wanted her to have this excitement about it, and I want to be really careful about what things I'm bringing to her that might stress her out. And I want you to be kind of conscious of that across the board, especially until your child is about 9. So somebody had mentioned to her last week about Trash Island, which gave her like anxiety for like 2 days. So while I gave us also an opportunity to talk about how we're doing our part, how reducing is better and reusing is better than recycling, but how we recycle when we can't reduce or reuse. We talk about those concepts sort of as a family all the time anyway, and how we're doing our part. I had to spend a great deal of time assuring her that there were people that were taking care of this issue. There were people that were really trying to figure this issue out, because it caused her a great deal of anxiety. And so, worrying about our ocean, worrying about how things are going to be. And I think that it's really important to be really careful. So I wouldn't say to her, oh, we're losing bees. Oh, why are there not so many monarchs? I'm really careful about that when they're young, because you don't want to sort of stress them out. And especially children, she's not melancholy in temperament. She's just like very full on, like, how do I fix this? But if she were melancholy, she might really get depressed about it. And so I want you to be sort of aware as you're bringing concepts to your children that are not, in the curriculum, that you're careful about it. You're mindful and very deliberate. Another thing that we did recently, and I think we had a lot of fun with this, and I know this is a United States thing. I don't know what they have in other countries for this, but we have this passport to your national parks, and they have a children's version. I have the boring adult version, and so I had to get this one because it looked fun, and I thought it'd be a fun thing for Soraya and I to do. So over the weekend, we went to Cabrillo National Monument, which is just kind of in our backyard, and we go there on a regular basis. And they have a junior ranger program because it's a national park. So any national park should have a junior ranger program. And this book is a lot of fun because this book goes through where all of the national parks are, and has a little bit of information about each of them, and sort of how they were created, or what the why they were created, like what's around there, and then it gives you a place where you can put the stamp for the park so that you've been there. And so we went to Cabrillo. We had a little bit of fun because there's 5 stamps here, and all of the stamps are different. At Cabrillo, it's a monument for Cabrillo the Explorer, but it's really like the most of it is the monument for the lighthouse that's there, this historic lighthouse that's like the farthest lighthouse in the western United States. Like it's the western tip kind of, and so you learn about the lighthouse, how long it's been there, how it's changed, how the lights changed, the people who lived there in the first lighthouse. There's also like a whale watching platform where you can go and look at whales that aren't actually migrating right now, but it's really great to go out there and look in like January, because January, February, there's often migrating whales, even December, and you can see them often in the distance, and it's a really beautiful view. So we go up there on a regular basis. Super Sam thinks he's too old to be a junior ranger anymore, because he's at that age of not believing. He's very skeptical of everything. He's almost 12, but Soraya is in a perfect spot for this. So I got this book because I thought about, this idea of cultivating a desire and a passion for learning comes from us listening, comes from us hearing what it is that they're saying, and then really being able to help them build that up, and being able to say, oh, well, let's go find out about that. Or that's a great question. This is what mom knows. Let's go see what we can find at the library. Or, I'm definitely not opposed to going, let's see what Google has to say about this. So especially if you're not in a spot where you can run to the library. So, I definitely think that you can have a lot of fun and also meet them in an age appropriate way. And I think that it's often, Waldorf homeschooling families in general often go, oh, yikes, I don't know that I can cover this. And I think you can. You just have to be mindful of it. I remember a time when our oldest was, I think he must have been 9 or 10, and he was like enamored with Egypt. And I knew it was coming, and we were going to be doing it, in 5th grade. And so I did not want him to have too much Egypt. I allowed him to check some things out at the library. We talked about it, but I didn't give him everything that I would have given him in the curriculum. I didn't give him all of the stories and all of the information. And yeah, we did have fun, like writing our name in hieroglyphics, that we did again the next year when he was ready for it. But I didn't give him didn't inundate him with Egypt like maybe we would have if it was a main lesson block. I allowed him to explore a lot on his own. I gave him We did some museum trips, and he had this fun book, and so I allowed him to really drink it in, even though it was not part of the curriculum at the time. When it comes to things like that, I generally don't try to make a main lesson out of it. Because I think that can also be a pitfall as a homeschooler. We make everything's a lesson. When really I think that can kind of squash that natural love of, oh, I'm learning something, or I'm having a good time with this. So I want you to be mindful of that. We went to a fun place yesterday. We went to a mushroom farm, and we have been reading The Wonderful Flight to the Mushroom Planet books by Eleanor Cameron. And Sam's been doing botany. So I originally was thinking about the books because of Sam doing botany, but then there's 5 books, and so the kids have loved them, and we've been digging into them together. So when we had this opportunity to go on this field trip, we took it, we jumped at it, because I thought it would be a lot of fun to sort of actually see the mushrooms being grown and understand the process. And it was a lot of fun, and we learned so much about mushrooms. And it was just they grow in the dark, and it was this operation that's here in San Diego. What was it called? Mountain Meadow Mushrooms, or Mountain Meadow Farm, or something like that. Yes. And they do a lot of commercial growing, but they're also in, those of you who are listening that are, in this area, they're in Sprouts and in Jimbo's, and I think that might be all. Maybe at People's, I'm not sure. In a smaller, so even though they're a large commercial grower, they do sell to some smaller organic markets and some farmers markets. So we had fun with that one, because we could go in and we could, we've been reading these books, and Sam had studied mushrooms, but we could go in and really have a good time with learning, a little more scientifically about what we've been, having fun with. And for Soraya, she probably heard want mushrooms, and that's okay. But she got to go and see how they were grown, and see what they came from, and smell the smells, because they are cultivated in poop. And so we got to learn about all of that, and so that's the part that will stick with her, how they grow. So when she sees them in the wild, the things that she'll remember are what our guide said. Our guide said, when you see a mushroom in the wild, you have to think back about 10 days and ask yourself what happened there. Did the temperature go up? Did it go down? Did you have a rainstorm? Because the sort of the roots for the mushroom are under the ground already. The mushroom is the fruit from that. And so those are the pieces that she'll remember. She'll see a mushroom now, and she'll go, oh, I wonder what happened 10 days ago. And she'll probably be like, Mommy, look at what happened 10 days ago. What happened? So those are the things that she'll remember. And that's the age appropriate part for her to remember. We're not going into all the scientific names of everything. We're not digging deeper into the things that we did for Sam, because that was where he was in the curriculum. So I think you can very easily, if you just ask yourself a few questions, is this too heady, when you're bringing it to them, I think you can absolutely meet them where they are, and really help them sort of love this idea of learning. One of the things I want to make sure I talked about on the other video that we're going to delete because it's a hot mess. Anyway, I'm thinking about other ways that we've done this with our kids. So we have 2.9 adult children. Eleanor's almost an adult. And I was thinking about ways that we had done this with all of them, actually, by really taking on things that they liked. And I had this conversation with this mom yesterday, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people think their kids are going to grow up to be like them. And I have 5 children, and none of them are like me. And I think it's okay for us to realize that they're so individual, and they have a lot of things that we're not going to be interested in. But our job is to sort of help them cultivate that excitement and that passion for things that they are interested in. With Harry, it was manga. I remember when he was about 16, so I'm talking about an older teen. When he was about 16, good morning, Emily. Good morning, everybody who's watching. We have a lot of watchers here. I knew we were in the wrong place. We have any watchers on the other one. I was like, what the heck is going on? Anyway, but when Harry was about 16, he discovered manga, and for him, he wanted to write it and he wanted to draw it. So he took a class, and it really lit him up, and he was super passionate about it. it was not something I was remotely interested in. But guess what? It was about him. It wasn't about me. With Jacob, it was like bikes and motorcycles, and he was a BMX rider, and he was super excited about that. So he wanted to know about people that had done that, and about people that had gone pro with that, and he was like super excited about that. With Ellie, my goodness, the girl has been wrapped up in Taylor Swift since she was like 9 years old. And so what's funny is she and my assistant's daughter Emily, they're besties like this, and they live states away, but when it comes to Taylor Swift, they are bonded. And so they have gone to every Taylor concert for gosh, I think this was their third Taylor Swift concert, but they go to concerts together on a regular basis. And so when I was thinking back to when she was younger, and she was just jumping out of her skin, crazy excited, and not able to focus on school the days before the concert. And so I thought, all right, well, we are gonna make this a lesson. We are gonna make this part of school, because I can't get you to settle down. So I had her go through and figure out the numbers for the concert. I had her figure out the average price of the stadium seats, the size of the stadium, how much Taylor would have brought in ticket sales wise from that one venue, and then look at the venues in the states around us, and then look at the whole picture. And that kept her going for a couple of days, because it was a lot of work. She had to do some geography work in there, and she had a lot of math work in there. And then because she loves art, I had her do some art as well. And because, it was part of the curriculum, so I'm always having them do some art pieces. But I think that really what I want you to take away from it is you can look at what your children are excited about, and you could pull that into a main lesson, or you can, definitely cultivate them going and learning about that on their own, or you helping them. If it's a younger child, you're going to have to help them, take them to the library. That's a great way to help them understand the library system and how to look things up and how to find things that they're excited about. So don't be worried about, covering things that aren't necessarily in the curriculum. Just find an age-appropriate way to do that if they're excited about it. And have fun with it, because that's what this is all about. That's why I love homeschooling. There's so much that we can do, that we do as a family, that doesn't necessarily isn't going to fit right into the Waldorf curriculum. The Waldorf curriculum is amazing, but it doesn't have every single little nuance that you're going to be interested in. So it's absolutely okay to go and have fun. And I encourage it. I encourage you to go and find things that are fun and lasting, and that you're going to remember forever. Because when they learn something like that on their own, and they learn something like that in a way that, they'll remember that you helped them, and they'll remember where they were when they learned it, and it will very much become, a fun part of them. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for sticking with us. If you were trying to find us, so sorry. I hope you have a wonderful week.